Next dark truth. Love is not a feeling. We do have feelings towards other people, don't we? Longing, happiness, concern. But these are not love. These are all individual feelings that already have their own name. Love is a narrative behind these feelings. If I constantly feel certain feelings in the presence or thinking about a person, and I start to tell myself I love that person, then I'm creating a sort of label for that cluster of feelings. Now, what's really interesting is one person's version of love is very different to another's. You take a very anxious person, their idea of love is being very concerned about someone and worrying about them all the time, stressing out about them being away, feeling clingy and needy when they're there. Whereas if you take, say, a more avoidant person, their feelings associated with love are like freedom and independence, and a sense of relaxation and calm, a longing for someone because they've been away for a while, like missing someone. Those are two completely different clusters of emotion, and yet both of them get the same label. The problem with the label love is that we can allow it to guide us into relationships with people that are harmful, and we can also allow it to become a get out of jail free card for treating other people badly. If I tell myself I love someone, I then justify pretty much anything I do to them because love means that I must be being good to them, right? And if I love someone, I must overlook anything bad they're doing to me because if I love them, it's because they're good. And this kind of narrative puts us in really harmful and quite bad relationships and also makes us tolerate bad behavior from ourselves to others. We can also love blind. Have you noticed that? You can love somebody who's dead. You can love someone who's completely a fraud and conning you. You can even love someone who's AI at these days, right? So we can attach that label to things that don't even exist or aren't what we think they are. And we can be very misled and very mistaken. So stop thinking about love as a feeling and think of it more like a narrative you attach to a cluster of feelings that you frequently associate with that word. I think there's a healthier way to think of love. I prefer to think of love as a set of conditions about behavior. For me, love is positive treatment of another person. Now, this is really important for someone like myself who's generally quite numb emotionally. So if I'm in love with someone, that doesn't mean my heart's bursting every time I see them. I know there are some people who feel that way. I think my wife feels that way a lot. But for me, I can feel quite numb or empty or nothing around people I love for extended periods of time. Like I can spend all day with my parents, for example. And on one hand, I know I love them, but on the other hand, it's not like I'm not melting inside. I'm not flushing with warmth as the chemicals flow through my body. I feel no different to if I'm by myself. So how do I know if I love them? And I can also feel, like we talked about before, I could feel that warm, gushing thing and be mistaken. That doesn't happen to me much, but I know it happens to a lot of people. You can feel lots of love towards someone, they don't love you back, or it's not the person you thought they were, or they don't even fucking exist. So this feeling can't be trusted, but behavior can be, because behavior is measurable. Behavior is real. You notice how often somebody says that they love someone, yet they treat that person objectively badly. How many people say they love their kids, and yet they yell at them and scream at them, hit them, withhold like kindness to manage their behavior? None of that behavior meets the definition of loving, does it? In fact, that would be easily behavior you could describe for how someone treats their enemies. And yet, because they say, I love my kids, they actually give themselves a pass for that unloving behavior. But if you make it the standard is whether I love someone or they love me is dependent on how they treat me. That's how I'm going to measure it. So if my partner says that she loves me, I put that aside and I wait to see how does she treat me. I've had strangers treat me lovingly. I've had people who call themselves my best friends treat me badly. The word love should always be about behavior. And also when it comes to giving love, there's times where I'm not sure if I love someone or not. I could say I love my wife, but my range of emotions around her really changes all the time. I can go for hours without even thinking about it. Does that mean I still love her? She's literally out of my mind like she doesn't exist for periods of time. Do I have to be thinking about her all the time for it to count? It's hard for me to measure. But when she's here, when she's around me, I'm kind towards her. I pay attention to her. I make sure we're doing fun things together. I support her when she's down. I encourage her to achieve her goals. As far as I'm concerned, that's love. And if I'm not doing those things, then I'm not being loving. And I don't get to say that I love her if I'm treating her badly. If I shout at her or slam doors or tell her that she's ugly or something like that, I wouldn't consider myself to be loving her. I couldn't say I love my wife and do those behaviors because they contradict. And this is especially to parents. You say you love your kids. Do you treat them lovingly? Do they feel respected by you? Do they feel that you're patient with them and compassionate, that you give a shit about them, that you listen to them, that you care about what they're interested in? Do you know the names of their best friends? Do you know what their favorite activity is? Do you actually behave lovingly towards them? Right? If you can start to measure that, both giving and receiving so-called love, it'll make it a lot clearer as to what kind of relationships you're in. Especially if you're the kind of person that gets into bad relationships, that gets mistreated and abused, odds are you get overwhelmed by words of love and you're not measuring behavior accurately. One thing I've noticed is exceptional behavior is really worth paying attention to. Somebody does something that's really harmful and they're like, oh, this isn't like me. I wouldn't usually do this. I'd pay real close attention because the person who's really loving towards you would never do it, not even once. Yes, people can slip and make minor errors and go slightly outside of the range of loving behavior into slightly harmful behavior. But outright harmful behavior, that's not even close to love. Like if someone says they love you and then they cheat on you, for example, well, I can tell you right now, when they're cheating on you, they weren't loving you. All right? Because cheating is not loving behavior. So if you're dating someone, they say that they love you, and yet they string you along, or they insult you, or they cut you off from your friends, or whatever, they don't love you. They might think that they do. They might have feelings they associate with love and attach to you, but they treat you badly, and that's all you need to pay attention to. There'll be other people who don't say the words you want to hear. They're a bit gruff or rude or blunt or whatever. But if you watch the way they treat you, you're like, I could rely on that person if I had to call them at 3 a.m. in the morning and I was stranded on the highway. Or this person has never swindled me. They've never lied to me or whatever. You'd be like, actually, this person might not seem all that warm, but they're very loving towards me. And that's what I need to pay attention to. That's the kind of people I need to have in my life. I've got to stop being conned by words.